paragraph 9 of that amendment changes the redevelopment agreement relating to pilots. The new amendment requires the township to grant the developer a pilot, yet no terms are specified. There's no term, there's no amount, there's no basic financial data or terms that are proposed. To grant a pilot at this point in the development where the purchaser has not done much of their due diligence, which is going to take another year to a year and a half, that information is going to be critical to determine whether a pilot makes sense or not. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense here, but on the face of it, it's way too premature to even commit to a pilot for this project. It makes zero business sense from a real estate standpoint, and it doesn't matter whether it's public domain or private domain. The approach to this development needs to be pragmatic and make sense. And by offering a pilot without stipulating terms and without having any understanding of what the pro forma and projections for its performance will be, because that data is not there yet. I mean, they can make up a pro forma, but the data is not collected yet by the developer or us to be able to establish that. So that reason alone would be enough to reject and sit and vote no for this amendment. And I strongly suggest that happen. The other issue is, why hasn't the purchaser identified a studio partner? But to not have one at this point in time, after all the time that's transpired, makes no sense. And this is redeveloper number 3. This township does not have a good track record for picking redevelopers for the downtown. 3 strikes and you're out, frankly.
I thought the original agreement was heavily weighted to the developer, but this proposed amendment gives them even more, along with shifting great cost and risk to the township residents and taxpayers. In the original, the redeveloper was required to fund and handle remediation. Now that responsibility would shift totally to the township. Why? The document doesn't say, except that the costs, quote, remain undetermined, end quote, although the issue of environmental remediation in this area has existed for well over a decade. Here's a clue. The redeveloper, while happily unloading this responsibility, and I have no idea why we would not at least share that responsibility or end the negotiations today, is offering to loan the town at least $1.5 million for remediation, which now includes demolition of buildings on 2 properties. The loan would be in addition to a nearly $500,000 existing cleanup fund. These are huge and scary numbers. And let's not forget that the 3 council members who are now in their 4th and final year of their terms, along with former council member Mayor McCartney, voted to authorize borrowing $20 million to buy properties in the phase 2 area. Let's not forget that we did not have to, since the state local redevelopment and housing law doesn't require municipalities to buy the properties, to avoid the dangers of real estate speculation and the loss of property taxes under municipal ownership. And let's not forget that I and other residents spoke at multiple council meetings telling you why you should not buy. Instead, you voted to authorize the township to borrow to buy the Barton Press property at 55 Lakeside in 2022, according to county records. We paid $12.5 million when the assessed value was $7 million. That means we paid $5.5 million more, 79% more than assessed. Those numbers are supposed to be similar. At that assessment, the cost of the town's ownership to the taxpayers to make up for was $321,860 annualized last year, and will be even more next year. But now we see two glaring reasons why not to buy that property. First, we're proposing to sell the Barton Press and Public Works properties for $10.8 million. If you apportion that price based on the relative assessed values of the two properties, we, and I'm counting every resident and taxpayer in West Orange, are going to lose more than half of what we paid 2 years ago just for the Barton Press property. More than $6.1 million loss. Just let that sink in for a minute. What do we use to repay the loan balance after wiping out half the value we spent it on? Increased property taxes are almost certain. And not only are we proposing to take this unconscionable and unforgivable loss, but now we're trying to saddle ourselves with remediation and demolition for property that we didn't even need to buy in the first place. Another huge issue is the redevelopment financial agreement, which outlines the financial impact of the project. State law allows incentives to get these projects done. Here in West Orange, as with the two previous redevelopments, the township is offering a 30-year tax abatement. No property taxes on the improvements for 3 decades, replaced by a payment in lieu of taxes. These pilots start payments at roughly 15% of what the redeveloper would otherwise pay at the property tax rates the rest of us pay. These amounts rise gradually over 30 years until finally required to be equal to the then current property tax rates. The typical pilot sacrifices millions of dollars in future tax revenue, as we have seen with the previous 2 pilots here. And guess who makes up that difference to fund the budget? Yes, you and me.
Aren't reasonable in renegotiating this, let them walk away. This redeveloper was picked without competitive proposals or bidding. If you can't get this project at least balanced 50-50 in terms of risk and cost for residents, you should end this process and restart and get the best competitive deal available in the market. Please vote no on this and send the administration a list of your own conditions to make this a much fairer agreement for residents and taxpayers. It's not too late to pull back from the abyss. Thank you.
We will speak to the redevelopment when we get to that resolution and ordinance. So I will reserve my comments until that time.
You know, why hasn't this been out in the public for longer? And it needs to be. This is such an important project for our township. This information cannot be rushed out. Everyone needs to be able to weigh in. And so Sheila Lefkowitz, I want to thank you for continuing this important conversation. Because quite frankly, I think Mr. Kukoviak should have had as much time as he needed to discuss it in detail. And so should Todd DeBovie. It's ridiculous that we would have something this important relegated to 5 minutes. So thank you all for coming out, and I will be voting no on this issue because there are just too many problems.
I was not in favor for this deal because of, as Ms. Lefkowitz mentioned, we didn't get the best competitive deal. We never put this out. And, you know, I've said from the beginning, we don't know what we don't know. And something that I struggled with is they don't even have a studio partner. And I knew this was going to happen. I had a feeling that we would be here. And so for that reason, I'm voting no, and I'm not in favor, just because I don't like the way that this happened. But there's no transparency, that it wasn't an open process. We have a fiscal responsibility, fiduciary here, and to put the best interests of West Orange residents, not developers, not anyone else, but you know, the people. But there are other things, again, outlined by Mr. Kukoviak, Mr. DeBovie, and Ms. Lefkowitz that, you know, I agree with you guys. This is not a good deal for West Orange, and this it helps the developer, and it hurts us, I believe, in the long run. I think the best thing to do is squash this and put it out to bid and see.
With that being said, I do appreciate the comments and the input from the public on this matter. Yeah, look forward to the conversation in in the next few moments.
First, and I think this property on Main Street is a great example of it. So it would have been easy to vote no. I did not vote no. And I have not voted no, because in spite of how poorly we got to this place, in spite of the poor advice that leadership, the administration must have been listening to, it was still the best deal for that property. So we have an opportunity to develop in a way that alleviates some of the financial pressure from resident taxpayers. It was still in the best interest of the town to vote yes. And so I did. Whether they get a pilot or not has yet to be seen. We are not voting on a pilot. Mr. Krakowiak, the only comment I will make, at least as of right now, with regard to your comments were, you're just wrong on assessed versus market value. And I think you know that. You're a property owner in West Orange. You know that the market value of your home is different than the assessed value of your home. So it's not like we overpaid by $5 million. We paid what the market and did get appraisals, and folks can correct me if I'm wrong, did get appraisals for the property so that we would understand what the market value was.
Excuse me, Council President, as we did also for Rock Spring as well.
Okay. So we understood where the market was on that property. And if we were to sell it to develop housing, the price would have been higher, but we would have also dug our property tax hole a little deeper. Because what you know and what most people in West Orange should know is that residential units use more in services than they pay in taxes, on average. So commercial development is the right thing to do there. Assessed in market value really don't matter much.
Thanks to the administration for getting it done.
Council President, I'm leaving. I have another obligation.
You're leaving to go to a debate watch party?
I am leaving.
You're leaving a council meeting to go to a debate watch party. That is impressive. Wow. I lost my train of thought. No. So on 268, while I am grateful that this is being done, and I do want to thank the administration for this work, I think we all know that this is not going to end. It may alleviate some, it may mitigate for a moment, but it's not going to end the issue. So I want to know what, if anything, we're going to do about addressing runoff from the top of the hill to the bottom. We have, water coming through Llewellyn Park. That's been an issue for years. You're very well aware of that. I think you, probably more than anyone else on the team is aware. There are some issues at the top of the hill, one with the resident, and then also with the retention basin from the townhomes there. And then we still have the issue with through Park Drive North and South. So are we prepared to address that issue holistically, or are we just trying to get a Band-Aid on this part? And I understand sometimes you need a Band-Aid, right? You may not be able to do the whole thing right now, but I want to understand that because I think that's the best approach.